Good morning, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. This morning we had some challenges, but with challenges in life, we just have to work towards overcoming them by God's grace. And here we are. They can't stop us. Here we are for the third edition, episode 3 of Health and Family Life Education, the Parenting Edition. Now, joining me this morning will be two special guests from the Communities Alive Education and Training Program. And I will invite them to introduce themselves at this time. With us at this time is Tanya Gooding. And Tanya, maybe you could share a little bit about who you are before we dive in. Go ahead.
Sure. First and foremost, I want to introduce myself as the president of Communities Alive Education and Training, as the NGO responsible for the Alive to the World program. So I am happily married for 24 years with 6 children, ranging from 23 to 7 years old, and 5 boys and 1 girl. I have a postgrad in marriage and family education, which has unearthed my passion for helping out families as well as learning more to develop my own. I can tell you up to a few years ago, having a child in tertiary, secondary, primary, and preschool, I needed all the help I can get, in terms of managing a household with all those age groups at the same time. So Alive to the World proved to be one source for me getting that information. So now, Elizabeth.
Okay. Thank you, Tanya. So Elizabeth, let's hear a little bit about who you are.
Hi, first, I am also part of Communities Alive. I'm the person most responsible for the communication, administration, as well as putting together the worksheets that are sent out to the children and the activities. I've been happily married for 18 years, and I'm the proud mother of 2, a boy and a girl. Ages of 16, so I'm in the teenage and preteen, 16 and 14. Communities Alive has helped me in those growing years because I've been a part of the organization since my daughter was in primary school. So I've gone through the steps, and Communities Alive the program has really opened my eyes to a lot of things that these children go through and what we as parents can do to help to enforce the values we know we like to see in our children.
Thank you and welcome, Elizabeth. So at this point, I would just share a little bit. Remember, parents are the first educators of their children. And that is something in this Parenting Edition Health and Family Life program we really want to make very clear. And, I always like to share with you a little bit about what is education. And to educate is to help others understand the relationship that exists between what they experience, so what they're experiencing in their lives, what we are experiencing in our lives, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the meaning and the reason or the reason on the other hand. So it's about this experience, but what is that doing for us? Where is that leading us? What's the meaning of that experience? And I'm reading here from the Educational Covenant, an introduction to the art of living. And to educate also means it's not merely about passing on information, which is knowledge. It's not merely about knowledge, but rather to help children, to help persons to see the relationship. We are about relationship between that information and the ultimate truth with its place in God's plan. So it's not just about piling on information, but the truth of who we are as part of God's plan. Now, I know that a big part of the work that Communities Alive do is about virtue formation. And also in this educational covenant, the art, an introduction to the art of living, it says the expression of desires demands the shaping of virtues. And at this point, I would like to invite Tanya to share a little bit more about the Communities Alive program. And also we are focusing here on the 5 to 9 age group. So maybe you can share with us a little bit more on that. Tanya, I welcome you.
Thank you very much, Tricia. So what I need to clarify from the beginning is, what is a virtue? A virtue is simply a good habit. And according to one Matthew Kelly, habits form character and character forms your destiny. So whatever habits you create determine the success in life, determine your outcomes and who you become as a human being. So these habits that we as parents are responsible for creating in our children have a very important role and many possible effects down the road, long-term effects, yes? So when we say success in life or outcomes, we're talking about all aspects of the person. So we're talking about, for example, health. Whatever you do now, even as children, from brushing your teeth, looking after yourself and so forth, will determine how healthy you become as an adult. Your work ethic, your relationships, everything you will do now, the habits you create now, affects who you become. And the purpose of A Life to the World is to show how we journey towards these final outcomes along with sexuality, because sexuality is part and parcel of who we are at all levels. So we look at the human person in education, in virtues of the whole person. Okay, we don't treat sexuality in isolation as part of the whole package. So another way of looking at virtues formation is forming good habits for optimal health and happiness. And I'm sure that's something that all of us parents want for our children.
Good. Thank you very much for sharing that, Tanya. So this time I want to bring in Elizabeth, because Elizabeth shared that she is involved in the Alive to the World program with helping with the charts and the different things. So maybe you can share a little bit more, Elizabeth, about that aspect of it. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, when it comes to the activities at each, as I say, age and stage, what I try to do, and we all try to do, is incorporate the parent in all the activities. So it's not just the child doing a question. It's about connecting the child to the parent and the parent being involved in how the child is journeying. So they're both journeying together. So in all the activities, the parent is incorporated. So you sit with your child, or the child is to ask the parent a question. So this way, there's always that tie-in between the parent and the child, which we always try to do and accomplish.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Elizabeth. Could I just add one thing? The activities come after the session in the classroom that's story-based. We use a narrative format in delivering the actual stories depicting the particular virtue. And that is the basis of the program within the classroom. And of course, in as a parent, if you have the books as well, it's always an opportunity to educate through a story. Is a very, very good tool of learning as well.
Right. I know, and you know, there's something I remember seeing. We are still in the year of Amoris Laetitia, and I remember the year of the family, and I remember seeing somewhere. I'm sure I'll find it shortly, where it talks about children need stories. Children need, they need to connect with stories. And as you said that there, that made a connection. I will look for that quote. Now, today we're going to focus on, I know that you have some slides that you want to share with us as well. So I'll invite you to do so at this time in terms of sharing a little bit more about Alive to the World, but making that connection with parents of children at 5 to 9 years old. In the truth and meaning of human sexuality, it talks about those years being the years of innocence. And maybe you can share with us, share with parents, what the curriculum looks like. And I'll invite Elizabeth after to share a little bit more about from a parent's perspective, and we'll go a little bit deeper there. So, Tanya?
Okay, so how we understand healthy sexuality and educating in healthy sexuality is that it's all encompassing. It is actually every single thing an individual will learn from birth, which allows him or her to form healthy relationships and eventually be able to live as a happy married couple if that is the chosen vocation. So it's everything, okay? Incorporates personality, value systems, and the basis has always been the family, right? We go back to the parents are the first educators of their children, primarily in areas related to sexuality. So it's the interaction, is what they observe, what they see, what they live out, will determine how healthy their sexuality is developed. And if we go back to the idea we spoke about initially about optimal health and happiness, we are looking to create happy children. So the actual virtues that would be needed to incorporate in their life is shown here, right? So we look, all of us who are married couples can think, what was it or is it that I still need to live out? What habits I need to have in order to have a healthy marriage, happy relationships with those nearest and dearest to me. And here we have outlined them all. Generosity, being able to give of self, give of time, energy, loyalty to family, to spouse, perseverance, not giving up, respect, mutual respect for each other, good communication, cooperation, give and take, working well with each other, the ability to forgive, having patience with self and with others, and being responsible, knowing that every action has consequences and being there to stand and deliver and accept the consequences. So this is what we wanted to focus on in particular for this particular session. What else I have on the screen is more of anthropology and so forth in terms of describing sexuality, which we can address at another time. But for today, we thought the emphasis on the actual virtues that are needed would be the emphasis for today, primarily in the younger ages and stages of our children's development.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Tanya. So at this stage, we are at the 5 to 9 stage. And there are certain things that we want to encourage, we encourage parents because of developmentally what is happening with the child. We want to encourage parents. So during this age group of 5 to 10, it's a primary time for developing conscious aspects of gender identity and learning gender roles. I am a boy, I am a girl. So maybe at this time, I would like to invite Elizabeth into that conversation, that learning, I'm a boy, I'm a girl. Would you like to develop that a little bit more for us?
Sure. Well, one of the things in the program says it's all introduced, excuse me, via stories. So we have a little story and it talks about a little boy or a little girl in a family and how they feel. But one of the things it also helps to identify is the child themselves. So a lot of the activities here would be mirroring. So we ask the parents stand in front of the mirror with the child and help them to appreciate and their uniqueness. And at the same time, you're validating them. Oh, look at your lovely curly hair. And what else is different about you? Oh, mommy, I have dimples. I mean, I have done that with my daughter and my son. And you develop a certain sense of self-esteem within the child. So they're happy to be who they are. I am happy because, oh, look at my smile and I have lovely eyes. So when they're able to identify their uniqueness, they feel validated in who they are and they're comfortable. The same thing with their names. You also go into names and surnames. So they also develop roots. So I'm affiliated with a family. I have a mommy, I have a daddy, and I carry their name. So who came up with my name? Mommy came up with my name. So all of that allows the child to feel special, to feel loved, because that's one of the things you also want to keep values within the child, that they're loved, they're brought up with family encompassed in love. So this way they are more confident in who they are, and they're able to now speak and say how they feel, what they like to do. And with this is, especially at this age, you want them to feel good about themselves. So this is one of the activities we do. It's called mirroring, and it involves the parent. So it keeps that flow of the child developing that self-esteem at this tender age.
Good, thank you.
And that, sure.
Thank you for that. Oh, sorry, Tanya, you wanted to share something? Thank you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that that activity comes out of the actual theme of the age of 5, which is getting to know myself, right? So all these stories focus on mainly 4 different areas. And in particular, we start off with I am me, understanding who the person is as a boy or a girl, right? So the main focus in Alive to the World at this particular age is starting off with that. Then we delve into before I was born. So we're putting me as a boy or girl in the context of a family, helping to form the identity of your 5-year-old rooted in the family. So Charlie at this stage during the stories is actually holding up pictures of his mommy and daddy when they were going out and courting and married, right? Before he came into the world. And in presenting this to our 5-year-olds in the classroom, which is something that parents would also be cognizant of, is that not every child's home environment would reflect that picture. So what we, as facilitators, as parents say, is that every child was brought to life by a mommy and daddy out of an act of love. And their purpose for being in a family is to receive and give love. And what that does in a classroom of that age is make sure that everyone feels that all of us are in a family for the same reason. And it really evens the playing field. It doesn't create any biases, anything like that. So that is very crucial in painting a picture of the identity of a child being rooted in a family. And of course, what is a family? Talk about grandparents, uncles, aunts, etc. And comparing a human, a person, to actually the animals, plants, why we're different. But focusing particularly beginning with I am a boy, I am a girl, the differences, how we complement each other, right? So those kind of areas we will touch on at this particular stage.
You know, I'm glad you shared that, Tanya. There are 2 things that jumped out at me. One, Elizabeth shared when she talked about, you know, you look in the mirror and, you know, parents look in the mirror. A lot of times when parents look in the mirror, they don't like what they see, okay? And children know when they don't like what they see, because they can see it on your face. You're saying you're beautiful, you're beautiful. You're telling the child that they're beautiful, but you can't see your own beauty because of the little folds and, you know, the maturing body. So I think, you know, helping parents to come to terms with their own self as well is really very important as a parent to love yourself, you know. You may start off nice and trim and slim, but then over time, you know, with children and bad eating habits, you talked about habits, you know, you may develop some folds, or you may develop, you know, you need to exercise a little bit more and so on. So I think that's important that when Elizabeth shared that came to my mind. And also when you talked about, you know, all children, you know, their situations at home is not a married couple. And, you know, working, you know, whatever your family system is, you know, how can we help children to see that they are gift, no matter the circumstances of their birth? Children are gifts from God. And I think the way you explained it there, you know, really helped to see that we are all on the same page because we are gifts from God and made in the image and likeness of God. So thank you for sharing that there. Do you want to add anything before I continue?
Well, when we focus on this age, because remember, it's virtue formation. So the virtues we emphasize are order and obedience. So within the context of family, we emphasize even within the context that obedience out of respect to parents and so forth is also very crucial to be cultivated at this age and stage. Because remember, we're also creating the habits alongside with the self-esteem and the values that come with it.
Thank you. Elizabeth, do you want to add anything here?
Yes, actually, as Tanya said, that all of this is coming encompassed in the family. You also want the child to identify, as she said, with your grandparents. So helping the child see who all family is, their aunts, their uncles. You know, the saying that it takes a village to raise a child. It also helps them to see who is part and parcel of their family and to identify with them as well. Because as they grow and they're in school, they also have to identify with the fact that they're part of a community there as well. And this is school. So when they leave the house and they have their little uniform, sometimes they're not recognized by Mary. Oh, look, Miss Andrews' son. Oh, look, Mr. Andrews' daughter. It's part of their family. And when people see them in their uniform, oh, he's going Sacred Heart Boys, oh, he's going Belmont Boys. So they also identify as a community, which becomes their school as well.
Thank you for sharing that.
Can I add one more thing? Sorry.
Of course, Sonia, you can add one more thing.
When we were talking about uncles and so forth, part of also remembering that if within your own direct family, you don't have a father present or mother present, there are aunts and uncles who can fill that role model as well. So we need to also be mindful of the importance of the extended family, etc., in helping every child have the male and female role model as parental influences in their lives as well. I just want to add that.
Thank you, Tanya. So I know, during this stage, we're in the 5 to 9 stage. We have about maybe 5 to 7 more minutes in the program. Parents should encourage a spirit of generosity and self-denial, a capacity for self-reflection. Now, I know play really helps in terms of developing the spirit of generosity and self-denial. Can you share with us a little bit about, during this 5 to 9 age group, the importance of play during this time?
Okay, well, in terms of play, what I want to start off saying is that during the pandemic, we created some habits that I think we need to address as most families, I know for particular mine, to get out of the gadgets and get back into play, socializing, and so forth, to be mindful of the positive effects of play. So I just want to run through. When we talk about play, the virtues, the habits that we are actually inculcating can be obedience to rules given by the referee or the umpire, working with others, living in community, respect, cooperation, humility, perseverance, confidence, discipline, fair play. And I mean, I'm sure there are others, but all of those are important aspects that I think sometimes we miss in terms of understanding the value of play. And play, when we speak about from the past few times, even when we were children, those games never go out of style, and we must remember to bring them back. So what we see here are 4 of the main benefits from play. Sometimes we don't realize neurological synapses every time we play a new game in a different way, because again, remember the hand games and so forth we play as children, it can change from one day to the other. But every time we do something new and our creativity comes into play, we create new memories. We learn virtues through it, new habits, as I mentioned, value system, we interact with others, and we also have healthy competition. And what I've outlined here, just the ages and stages, because of how the child's brain is developing and maturity, the different types of games we can focus on each stage that enhances their readiness, their capacity, their ability to physically exert yourself, as well as develop as a human being. And going back to the games we grew up with, did we know that swinging developed spatial skills, balance, spatial awareness? You know, sometimes you come out of the mall and you don't know where you park your car. Well, maybe we should have swung a little bit more before when we were growing up, right? Skipping is helping with synchronization of arms and legs. Yo-yo, they have the Tazos nowadays and so forth. Help with calculation, coordination. And of course, the tradition that we know now, bicycles, skates, and skateboards, those kind of things help with balance, right? And the amazing thing is now it's the August holidays. Opportunity for our children to go outside and play. And what we could also tie into them, which is part of what our program does, is identify with realistic examples. We just have had very good success in the Commonwealth Games. We put forward people like Jereme Richards with the running and the cyclist Nicholas Paul, and build the expectations. Wouldn't you like to be with like one of them? Let's go outside and start. What are we learning from it? Don't you think they had to persevere? Do you think they ran all the time? And you build in the knowledge and experience of practicing certain habits to become one of these great athletes, hopefully in the future, but at the same time, giving them motivation. Yes?
Thank you very much for sharing that, Tanya. So at this stage, as we bring this session to close, I want to invite Elizabeth. As you know, you are the person who develops these different games, and as Tanya said, we are in the holiday time now. You know, yes, we gave parents some games that they can do, but this 5 to 9 age group, you know, people think they have to spend a lot of money and so on. Are there any other games that you would like to recommend? Being mindful that under 9 years of age, play is children's work. You know, would you like to develop that a little more by sharing from your own experience as well?
Sure. And one of the things you want to also be cognizant of is that while the age group, the 7 to 8, may be gravitating to the gadgets, as parents, you need to control that. Mm-hmm. If you give a time, say, okay, you have 2 hours or 3 hours. After that, let's get into a family game. Choose family night. Say, okay, this day is the games night. You know, encourage them to go outside, play with the football. If it's play badminton, racket games, board games, because these days weather is so up and down. So you have things you can do indoors. You can play board games, all different types of board games. Tic-tac-toe if you don't have a board game. Simple tic-tac-toe. And you will imagine the amount of fun you will have just doing those things as family and children, something different. Because
boy, girl, animal.
Boy, girl, animal. And all these are simple things you can do that cost nothing. Mm-hmm. And you want an outing, say, let's go and see the sights. You go down to the savannah, you go to the hollows, you have a picnic, you run around with them, bat and ball, and you're looking at things that cost nothing at all. Just time. And at these crucial ages, a lot of the children, that is what they need, your time. And I want to really impress upon parents, you need to spend time with them. You need to spend time. They're not concerned that you can buy them something and say, okay, go in the corner and play with it. No. They will prefer you sit with them and play tic-tac-toe. They will value that more than the thing you can buy and just hand over to them. You really need, as family and as parents, spend some time. It doesn't have to be all day, a few hours. I know right now, a lot of single parents struggling with working in the morning, probably picking up a second job. Just come home, whatever time, wake them up, give them a little nudge, mommy's home, how was your day? They want to know that you care about them and what happens to them. And ask, how was your day? What did you do? You know, all this is connection. And at this time, you really need to pay attention to your children and spend that time with them.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So as we bring this session to a close, there's so much more that we want to talk about. We wanted to talk about conscience formation. We wanted to talk about the importance of feelings and emotions. So once my 2 guests are available next week, we're going to come back on and we're going to continue this conversation because there's a lot of things that we can cover in that 5 to 9 age group, and we're going to try our best to do so. So in some closing remarks, maybe I'll invite you, Elizabeth, to share some closing remarks with us.
Well, Trisha, what I'd like to enforce, as you have enforced each time, we are our children's first educators. And I think parents need to internalize that and understand the responsibility that carries with it. We are their first. They look at us and we are the examples that they look at and what they will pattern. So I think it's very important as parents, we understand that and understand that they look to us. The little things you may think you get away with, they see it. They do see it and they pick up on it. So we need to be very mindful and conscious of that. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Tanya, any closing comments?
Okay. Well, just to pick up from what Elizabeth said, because we model the example we want our children to follow. So yes, we are their first exemplars, and we can't teach what we don't practice, right? Because we become hypocrites. And many of the times when our children get older and they want to choose their value systems, apart from setting the example, we need to be happy doing it. And that sometimes is a very challenging responsibility when you come home from a hard day's work. I know my husband at times sits in the car for a few minutes just to compose, decompress, get rid of the challenges of the day, to present a father figure that the children will warm up to and want to emulate. Because again, when they have to choose who they would like to become, when they see the television or see other things that look greener on the other side, because they look more happy and appealing, we have to be conscious that as setting the right example, we have to be happy and joyful doing it as well. I think I'll end with that.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Tanya. And I think parents, don't be too hard on yourself. Huh? All of us are making a journey to becoming the best version of ourselves, you know, to becoming who God wants us to be. We will make mistakes. The good thing about mistakes is that once we're able to acknowledge it and ask God for the grace to continue to be better, and tell our children, acknowledge our mistakes before our children as well, I think they're able to see us as human and identify with us, and we continue to do it together. So don't think you have to be any perfect parent. There is no perfect parent. There are praying parents, and there are parents who are really trying to do their work and on themselves with God's grace to become better people. Tanya, I know one of the things we didn't cover, and I don't know, maybe you want to cover it next week, is the training for parents, the training for teachers and so on. Do you want to share a little bit about that now that Alive to the World offers, or would you prefer that we deal with that next week?
Well, if you have a few seconds, I can summarize it, and next time we could go into detail. That makes sense?
Yes, we can.
Right? Okay, so many of the slides that I showed, actually all of them, came from the training. Now, part of the goal of Alive to the World is understanding the whys behind the virtues. So it's not only about you need to develop this habit, but we need to understand why we as parents need to have the habit as well as our children. So the topics we would cover in the training would include, for example, understanding the psychology of your child, both in primary and secondary. So actually understanding their mind and how it's developing and maturing. We do a bit of anthropology, which is the study of the human person. We do a bit of ethics, which is about the virtues, what they are, why they exist, and how they relate to living out ourselves. We study a bit about the family. We study a bit about sports and play, but more in depth, right? And then we go into the teen years, understanding adolescence with the T and with the NCE, right? The whole period, the changes that take place in the mind and the heart and the body, everything, the integration, how everything works together, and affectivity and sexuality on a deeper level that relates to relationships and marriage. So all of that is covered in the training for the Alive to the World program. So if you're interested as parents, oh, please let us know.
Right. So we're going to have, thank you, Tanya. We're going to have those contacts in the chat. Tanya, do you have a page on the slide indicating those contacts so we could just show it to the to persons who might be interested, and after we will also put it in the chat. So as we pull that up, so we want to thank you. So here's the contact information. There's an email, there's the phone, there's the website, there's the Facebook for Communities Alive Education and Training. So you could take a screenshot, parents, teachers, whoever is viewing with us. So next week, we thank all of you viewers for joining us. We thank you, Tanya. We thank you, Elizabeth, for taking the time. Even though we had some technical difficulties, with God's grace, we are able to use other means to make this happen. We thank all of you for tuning in and being a part of this series, Health and Family Life Education, the Parenting Edition. Remember, parents, you are your child's first educators. And with God's grace, you can become the best version of yourself so that you can mirror that for your children. Thank you, and God bless you.